Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next in our many conversations about race, neuroscience, consciousness, and kind of what's going on in the world today. So today we have Denise Miner, who is president of Mind Spring Metro DC, and she's just devoted. I've known her for a number of years, and she's so devoted to helping organizations and individuals perform at a higher level. And she does experiential work, development, coaching. She is just a really amazing human developer. And also, interestingly, Denise spent over 28 years in public service as a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So she brings a very, very interesting perspective to this whole conversation. She's fascinated by the brain. She's fascinated by leadership. It's one of the roles that she did as an FBI instructor. She does that internationally. And she just loves to help people shift their mindset and perceptions. And I just consider her a very beloved colleague. So welcome, Denise.
Thank you, Anne. Appreciate you having me here.
Well, let me ask you this, so when I reached out to you about having this conversation about neuroscience and consciousness and race, why did you say yes? Like, what was important to you about this conversation?
Well, it's exciting. As you said, I'm passionate about those topics. And I was just very grateful to have the opportunity to be able to speak about how mindset is important and share how I made sure to have a mindset that was based on creating a foundation of meaning and service. And also just to show that I want to be able to talk about the 7 levels because it's an exciting tool to be able to use. And I think it's most important to help people with mindset, especially in this current time of social injustice and unrest and everything that's been going on in the world. And I use the 7 levels to keep, above the line. And I think talking about it from my perspective will also be a tool that others will find helpful to use as well.
I love it. So let me ask you that. We can just see where we go with all of this.
Okay.
But how do you stay personally above the line? I mean, you have a broad context for this conversation, including being in law enforcement as well in the field of human development. How do you stay above the line?
I stay above the line by being consciously aware of where my emotions are, where I am. Now, when all of this first came out, I knew I dipped below the line. I could just tell because I was just like, oh my goodness. And I was at frustration. I was angry. I was shocked. And then, of course, there was a little bit of fear. So I kind of dipped down there. It's like, man, with everything going on, what else could happen? So it was kind of an anxiety, but mainly frustration because I've seen it all before, but not as graphic. And I've experienced some things in my life that were bubbling up. And so when people ask me, so what do you think about all this? Or how are you feeling? I'm like, I'm frustrated. And then I talk about it. And then it's like, okay, I've had my 3 minutes of really digging into my frustration. Let's get up to courage, okay?
Okay, so let me ask you that. Why? So, because I think this is something for people that haven't kind of, lived with the 7 levels.
Right.
Well, it is frustrating and it is wrong and it is scary and it is hopeless.
Yes.
So why is it important to get, as we say, sort of above the line and, courage or above? Like, why does that matter given that there's truth to the below the line?
Well, yes, there's truth below the line. However, when you get stuck there, you get into a swirl, downward swirl. And being able to get above that to the starting at courage, it opens up some creativity there, some hope, and some like, there could be things come out of this situation that could benefit all of us. And what I've seen is like the bravery and the resolution of people marching and things, even in spite of being in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
Yeah.
That is courageous. And I think, I'm also coming back to this understanding that we have that everything's inclusive. So it's not that you then, and that's what I like about you saying, I had my 3 minutes I needed to express. I need to include them because otherwise it's just nonsense, right?
Right. I don't want to be a Pollyanna and say like it doesn't exist, you know.
Right.
Yeah, feel it and then find a way to move out of it. And that's where the 7 levels has been most helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think about these as sort of all part of my team.
Hmm.
And these are valuable members of my
Yes,
team. They tell me interesting things, but I really don't like them driving the bus because
exactly.
I drive it over a cliff. So,
Exactly. You're right. You're exactly right.
yeah. What are some of the paradoxes or complexities that you're seeing in the world right now as we're sort of trying to engage with this? It seems like got a different way this time.
Yeah. It's like people are, seems like just now seeing it. A lot of people are just now seeing it. And I was kind of shocked. I just learned about the city of Tulsa 99 years ago. I mean, so stuff is coming out. I'm like, whoa. Um, so the thing is, people now are seeing it, and I don't know, they didn't see it before. So I'm just kind of, that's kind of confusing for me because it's always been there.
We,
Um, so I'm not sure about that. I mean, there's some experiences that I had as growing up, but
and
because
where did you grow up, Denise?
I grew up in, my father was in the Air Force, so I grew up in Virginia and then went over to Germany for 3 years and then came back to the United States in 1968. So
Oh,
when I was
wow.
in Germany, you know, I wasn't aware of all the racial strife per se. And before we left for Germany, there was one incident as a young child, but my mother was really protective of us. And if I can just share a quick story,
Please.
so we were at a bowling alley in Virginia, and since my parents were in the military, my father was in the military, you know, the military wives and the kids got together, and we all wanted to go bowling. So we go to this bowling alley. I believe I was in Hampton, Virginia at the time, and we're in the parking lot. You know, there's 2 cars. You know, we're all in my parents' station wagon waiting. Oh, we're gonna go, you know, bowling. There's like 2 or 3 women and all their kids and stuff. And I could read then, and I remember seeing a sign that said "No colors allowed." So I'm like, but I didn't know what that meant. So my mother said, "Oh well, whatever the woman's name is has to go into the bowling alley to see, you know, if we can bowl." So the woman comes out and she comes in the car and says, "Oh, we can't bowl because it's full." And I said, "Well, wait a minute. How could it be? You know, I'm probably like 6 or so." And I said, "Well, how could it be full when we're the only 2 cars in the parking lot?" And my mother just like, she said it was full, so just don't even bring it up. And that was the only experience, you know, before we went to Germany.
She's trying to protect you from
Yes.
something that hurt.
Yeah.
Interesting how that sticks in your brain. Like
Yeah.
something that you knew there was something that was like like cognitive dissonance. So because you think about how much from our early life we don't remember. I'm
Yes.
always curious about what we do.
Yeah. I will never forget that. And then, so we came back to the States in 1968. I was in the 5th grade. And I remember this little girl, I'm walking home. And this little girl calls me a nigger. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not stingy." And she gave me this look. Because I'm thinking nigger Lee, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah.
She gives me this look like, "Well, who is she?" So I go home, you know, and so my mother wanted to know about my experiences because she always wanted to know how we did at school and everything. And I told her, you know, that this girl was calling me a nigger, and I told her my mother, and I could see my mother was trying to stifle a laugh. But then she said, "Well, I just want to let you. We're going to have a talk because we're in the United States."
Yeah.
And that's when I started learning about, you know, all of this stuff and this and that, and you know, just seeing all of that. So
It's such a, it's, it's a, well, there's two things. And we're both, laughing at the little girl who didn't
right,
understand.
right, right, right.
And thinking about a video I saw today about a FedEx man. I don't know where he was, and he had been called that. And he's in his FedEx truck, and he's just crying. And he's
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
can't even can't even work. I can't even
Right.
do a job. What
Hmm.
is this? Why are we not over this hate? What is
Right.
this hate?
Hmm.
This
Yeah.
not. young, nice looking FedEx man.
Mhm. Mhm.
Why are we not? What, what is this?
Right.
And I think about the stress. I've been thinking a lot lately about the stress load that I don't have to carry.
Mhm.
Like I'm watching him, and I know what it's like to be so shocked by something, not that, not racism,
Right.
but
Right.
personally shocked and not be like have my brain just not even be able to function, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm watching this guy, and I'm just thinking, it's hard enough to be a human being without automatically carrying this extra nervous system load.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, um, I don't, you and I were talking earlier just about the brain, and
Right.
I'm not sure where to go with that. Does that like spark anything for you? I can think of a question here. I
Yeah,
just was.
well, sparks for me is if we are able to not be in the amygdala, like the raw emotion, if
Yeah,
we're able to understand that we're reacting from this position,
yeah,
right, and that's below the line. But if we're in our prefrontal cortex, we're able to respond to things and we're able to think things through, and that's where we can get to courage and above.
yeah,
And that's what that for the brain, that's what that works for me. And when I talk to people about what's going on, I make sure that I know that they are above the line because they will not hear me. They will not understand a thing I say if
yeah.
they're below the line
Yeah,
because they're just in raw emotion.
exactly. And that's when I think about that. And we probably have all, for whatever reason, had those moments. Maybe you got really horrible feedback from someone, or you got
Mhm.
yelled at by even your mom or whatever.
Mhm.
And we know those moments where you can't even think. And when I think
Right,
about the guy in the truck, it's not the time to have that conversation.
right,
Um,
right. Yeah.
where just the pure emotion. But I've been thinking too about, you know, so when I think about why we go to this amygdala place,
Mhm.
this place where it's just this kind of raw place, and some of what we've been learning more lately is that it's so contextual. It's
Yes,
so dependent on our already programmed expectation, right?
right.
Experience.
Exactly. Yes.
Um, so one of the things I've been seeing lately is, and I actually just, like I find it like justly deserved, maybe is the word. Okay, so on the one hand, there's the people who are saying, okay, white people, go educate yourself. You're undereducated about Black history and the Black experience. You're undereducated. And then on the other hand, there are people like, hey, the answer is not to start a book club. And I am just like, do you know what? You like there's not the right answer right now, and it's justly deserved. It's fine, I'm not complaining about that.
Yeah.
But part of the argument, I think, for reading more diverse literature, reading history, all of that, it's not just that the answer is, oh, go join a book club. The answer is you have more context. You
Right.
have more of a ability, hopefully, if this is lacking, to see the whole person in front of
Right.
you.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And for me, it's like if someone suggested, yes, I want to start a book club to do this, wow, they're making a step that they feel that can help them. And maybe by educating themselves, they're making the effort for them to do something with all of this. That's great.
Yeah.
I see that everybody has a way that they want to respond. I mean, either they want to do marching, either they want to, protest, or they want to, do legislation. But whatever a person feels that it's for them and it's above the line, that can help heal this racial injustices and all of this throughout the world, I think it's good. I think it's really good.
I really love that, Denise, and I hadn't thought of this. You're so good at this, the
Thank you.
shifting the mental, how do you say it? Shifting, mindset and perceptions. I just
Yes.
love that because one of the things that I'm remembering, and it might be a quote from Hafiz or Rumi or somebody like that, but it's basically like no movement of love is ever wasted. And so
Exactly.
it doesn't have to, if it's truly done from courage,
Hmm.
it's like do something. It will
Right.
put more love in the world.
Exactly. Yeah. And I also think it's important for like, for example, if somebody said, like, someone was talking to me and they said to me, oh, you know, because you're Black, you're different. And I said, well, how is it that I'm different? You know, I have two eyes, you know, I have the red blood and I have this. And so I said, so they paused and they're like, oh, maybe that was kind of a dumb statement. And then it was a conversation like, well, I want the same things you want, you know, nice home, education, I want all of this. However, the difference comes in is how the systems that are in place are applied to me differently, but I'm not different.
Right.
And they're like, oh, I didn't see that. And they're trying to figure out how are they going to tell their kids about, you know, brown-skinned people. I said, well, the worst thing you could do is say the brown-skinned people are different, because then you're going to create this cycle of, well, they see the difference like, oh, I get all this, brown people don't get this. So in their minds, they'll start that social injustice kind of thing. But if you focus on the fact that it's the systems in place that are applied differently.
Right.
And they're like, oh, okay. So I see this time for having conversations with people in a nice, calm way. And as you know, from a neuroscience perspective, if people feel safe,
Yeah.
they can admit their feelings. You know,
Yeah.
they can say, oh, okay, I didn't see it that way. But if I'm going to say to that person who said that I'm different, if I started an argumentative conversation, I would have achieved nothing, because they would have dug their heels in to defend their position, their perspective.
I think that's, yeah, exactly. And it was a bunch of things that are just working for me. Remember when I was doing a leadership program years ago, and we had a couple of people who were disabled activists, and that might not even be the right word. Forgive me if it's not, differently abled. And what they both came in, and man, I had not thought about it this way. Both of them happened to be in wheelchairs. They said, the problem is not that I'm in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the world is not designed to make things possible for me.
Right.
It's the system. I'm fine. I'm
Right.
fine with who I am and what I can and can't do.
Exactly.
It's
Right.
the world, like, you know, I need the curbs to be, you know, I need a way to get
Yes.
down the street, you know.
Exactly.
And it was a really good, like, oh, rather than saying you're the other,
Right.
how does the system expand itself? The other thing that really strikes me about that whole different thing is it's basically saying there is a norm,
Right.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
everything that is not the norm is a deviation.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, who said white is the, you know, different than what? I'm not different, you know.
Right. Right.
Who said what the norm is?
Right. Right.
I think that's part of the way the mindset in this country is.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And the mindset is key. Because I mean, even when a police officer is stopping someone, if you have a mindset of, okay, I am, I noticed something that could be harmful to others or something, or that person could harm themselves. But if you come from a position of, how can I help versus you're the enemy, you get
Right.
two different things that happen.
Right. And I think you know, one of the things I've been also thinking about is, you know, what else is going on in the brain?
Mm-hmm.
Is having, you know, a different response if I get stopped by the cops than, you know, if you get stopped by the cops, or if it's, you know, a 24-year-old Black man gets stopped by the cops, right? What is there?
Yeah.
What's that?
I said, yeah.
So one of the big things that I've seen is it's the way that we process empathy.
Yes.
And this,
I see that. Yeah.
see that, like that one of the this, well, so one of the things is this idea that we have this feeling for each other based on tribal identification.
Mm-hmm.
You hold difference, like you're saying, well, you're different than me.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're not part of how I am going to feel my care.
Right. Right.
If that makes sense. And you gave this example of the cop that was helping this little girl.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? You know, he's feeling you're just a human. I mean, you know, you're just a human and you need help.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it's again, once again, it's a mindset, and it's a perception.
So
So
when you know, you come out of law enforcement, and
yeah.
so one of the things that's been taking a lot of heat is law enforcement because of
Mm-hmm.
Floyd and because all this other stuff is getting surfaced about, you know, things that some of that we knew about, some that we maybe didn't, that weren't as broadly broadcast now are getting more attention.
Right.
Yeah, what do you think about law enforcement in the 7 levels? And, you know, I imagine you've thought about that a bit with all of this
Oh
going.
yes, yes. This is a great tool for law enforcement. When they, I believe, like having this, and you're making a stop. If you focus on, okay, I'm going to be at engagement, somehow your brain shifts to, I'm going to be in engaging. Okay, I'm going to be motivated. I'm going to be tolerant. I'm going to bring value to this relation, this stop, this traffic stop, or I'm going to do this. I'm going to. So if you have this with you as a police officer, and you, okay, I'm going to make this stop. Okay, it's an African American person or any person per se. But if you have your mindset before you act, more than likely your brain is primed for being compassionate, having empathy,
Yeah.
being helpful, being able to serve and protect. You know, so I think having that, being at the fifth level, when you keep that in mind when you're doing a stop, but when you're in fear or in rage, the whole encounter is just going to go haywire.
Right, you're going to bring that energy. They're going to bring that energy. It's, I mean,
Absolutely.
part of what we know about energetic fields is they get reproduced.
Mm-hmm.
And if we also, maybe if cops can understand um, that this is inclusive, and it doesn't mean they
Right.
shut off their spidey sense, right?
Exactly. Right. You could still have that sixth sense, if you want to say. You can still have that awareness. But okay, if I'm in fear, where's it coming from?
Right.
All right. Is this guy like really shifty, like he's going to reach for a weapon, or so you do have your senses there, but you'll know how to respond instead
Yeah,
of
and
active in fear mode.
I think what you're, you know, what is occurring to me is that for the most part, I was watching this, I was reading this article about this woman who had a standard poodle, a pretty big poodle, and it was a black poodle,
Mm-hmm.
and it liked to ride in the front seat, and
Mm-hmm.
she just got stopped constantly by because from behind, you know, this poodle. And so once the poodle actually died, she said, I never got stopped by cops again. But it was like this, they already were coming into the situation with
Right.
kind of this aggression. I don't remember what part of the country she was in.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then they would see her, who was, you know, a middle-aged white woman,
Mm-hmm.
and they would kind of, it was like they would go to a different place.
Right. 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 Right.
It's already primed because of the poodle
Mm-hmm.
to be sort of aggressive. And so this kind of check yourself here.
Right.
And it doesn't mean don't be safe.
Right.
You want to
Eh,
have your intuition and
right.
all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, the statistics don't bear out that the only dangerous people are people with different, listen to me, with darker skins, right? That
Right.
is not
Right.
what the
Right. Right.
research
Right.
says.
Yeah. Yeah. And also through all this, I'm hearing from Caucasian people who have had bad situations with police officers, and when I hear those stories, I'm shocked. I'm like, wow, really? Um, so it's coming out from all sides. What's
Yeah,
happening?
and I think back to that, that is probably, you know, it's, I think it was Dave Chappelle who said, you know, it's saying that you have a few bad cops is like American Airlines saying you have a few bad pilots,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
which might be a little extreme, but, you know, saying like the system can't afford to have people who are disrupted. And one of the things I've been studying, I think as you and I talked about before, I've been doing more studying of personality disorders this year. And I know that there are people in every walk of life, from CEO
mm-hmm.
to police, who have personality disorders that make it impossible really for them to have empathy for other people. And that
Exactly.
is not a good, there are many who are criminals. In fact, the best research has been done in with prisons,
Mm-hmm.
high percentage in
Mm-hmm.
prison, but there are also some who serve in law enforcement because of that belief that I will be able to control things.
Right. Exactly.
And I think, part of my thought from a neuroscience perspective is we need to like people like that need to get screened out.
Yes, and people can people know about people, and it would be kind of interesting to see like how many of these police officers that have you know caused caused problems, how often has that happened during their career?
Right.
Uh,
And how many of them are they like people like, I don't want to be partners with that guy, or that
exactly.
woman. Right.
Right. So there are indicators of behavior that people, if they paid attention, they can either help the person get, hey, look, we need to, maybe you need to, study the 7 levels or get some more emotional intelligence or something, but to let them know that it's okay for you to, we want you on the force, but you need to get some help to be able to show empathy, to be able to be compassionate and protect and serve all.
Right, right. Because look what happens if you can't protect and serve all the people, you can't protect and serve any of the people. I mean, look at what's
Exactly.
happening. The people, and the people will explode.
Right.
And so I actually think, there's a guy that I've been following, Simon Baron Cohen, and he's developed a checklist for empathy. And I
Okay.
think it would be a really good part of the intake process for law enforcement. One of
Mm-hmm.
the other things that's really interesting about this whole empathy thing is part of what enables us to have empathy is the hormone oxytocin,
Right.
which, right, it makes us feel trust and
Yeah.
connection and all of that. Well, one of the things that will block oxytocin, testosterone.
Ah.
So you think about, young guys in particular, what do they have a lot of?
Testosterone.
Right. And so you probably saw this. I'm wondering if you saw this as an FBI trainer. It's like
Yes.
as people got a little older, they kind of mellowed out a little bit.
Yes,
And
indeed. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
and sometimes this is why, and I don't want to make this into a gender thing, but sometimes this is why women can actually stay more connected in tense situations
Right.
because they're not taken over by testosterone, which is really designed to help us sort of hunt and protect and
Right.
be more aggressive.
Right. Right. That you said something that struck me, to hunt and to be aggressive, whereas when you're a police officer, your role is to protect everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And to stay protected yourself. And I think this is where
Exactly.
where
Yeah.
some of the yeah, but reaction comes in. It's just
Mhm.
that we can't have our brains, I would imagine, an officer can't have their brains on a loop where we have now categorized a whole bunch of people as threat
Right. You're
and a
right.
whole bunch of other people as not threat based on the color of their skin, because that is
Exactly.
dangerous.
Yeah. Very, very much so. Yeah.
Well, what advice do you have? What advice do you have for anybody in the middle of all of this, based on your own experiences and your deep experience also in human development?
The advice that I would give is for people to make sure that when they're the process, first of all, their emotions that they're feeling. This is a great tool, so everybody can use this tool. Know where you are, process that emotion, and make the conscious choice of getting above the line or getting out of the spiral. And to be calm. And when you talk to others about it, what's going on, not it's not in a not to be judgmental,
Mm.
because everybody's going to have a different response. Everybody's going to have a different response. If some people are not responding the way you think they should respond, well, that's them, and then you're you. They're not going to respond the way you respond to certain things. So just respect everyone's views, and also if someone is doing something against you that making you feel less than or wrong, I would, in a polite manner, how, you know, how is it that you're doing that? Or how would you feel if I did that to you? And just to keep the dialogue going, you know, using the how and the what questions, keeping people, you know, in a way that they can, you know, be responsive instead of reactive. So,
I love that. You know, there was just an incident, I think it was in San Francisco, where there was a man who self-identifies as a brown man who
mhm,
was stenciling in chalk Black Lives Matter on the outside of his house, and a white woman and her husband came by, and she got very uh, itchy with him and
mhm,
nasty with him. And then she put out a statement today that she was watching her own video and couldn't even believe how she was responding. And I think this is part of it, is that, you know, for whatever reason, I'm not excusing her by any means, but, you know, she was in the middle of getting really ramped up
mhm,
about this.
right,
And I really love you coming back to saying, let's, you know, just, if you're gonna, you know, have some kind of response, check yourself first.
right,
You calm, you
mhm,
know, or not, because you may end up on video and fired from your
right,
job if you,
right.
if you're,
Yeah,
if you're not. Uh, which is, I think, a hopeful thing at this time. There's just, it's like, we're not going to tolerate that.
right,
So,
right. And you also know too, from a neuroscience perspective, that whatever energy you put out, that's going to affect the other person. What, the mirror neurons, or am I?
yep,
Yeah.
yeah,
So when people
absolutely.
realize that, and then they can calm themselves for peaceful conversation or peaceful interaction, then
Yeah.
having those intentional moments where you can decide how you're going to show up and what kind of mindset you're going to present.
Mm, mm, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us and for the beautiful work you're doing in the world. And I'm really going to take away that it is all about your mindset, for
Thank
sure.
you for having me. I'm so glad to be part of this, and thank you for bringing the 7 levels to my life. And so it's been really good. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Denise. Take
Thank
care.
you. You too.